So we are very excited to have Ben here with us today. Ben is a batyr storyteller who's been sharing his story with batyr since 2021. We're really excited to hear his story about anxiety and how he's navigated some tough times. So thanks so much for joining us, Ben.
No problems, can't wait.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about you. Who is Ben?
Yeah, so my name is Ben. I'm 21 years old. I grew up in the inner west of Sydney and I've lived here my entire life. And, you know, I love all things like sport and competition. I love music. I work in hospitality. And so those are kind of my loves at the moment.
Awesome. I'm really keen to kind of explore your story and hear a bit about your journey. So I guess where does your story kind of start?
Yeah, so it all kind of started for me when I was about 13 years old. My mum was diagnosed with breast cancer and I didn't know how to deal with it at the time. It was like just a lot of emotions and feelings that I never knew how to deal with. And it meant that I couldn't focus in school. So the start of my mental health journey began with me going to see a doctor and being referred to a psychologist to see if I had ADHD or some form of learning disability. And from there, I came out of the doctor's office being diagnosed with anxiety, and that wasn't what I was expecting at all. And so that time of my life really kickstarted my mental health journey.
Yeah. And what was it like for you, I guess, kind of going into the doctors and not really knowing what to expect, or kind of having an idea of what you think the doctor is going to come back with and then they come back with something completely different? What was the impact of like receiving a diagnosis of anxiety then on your mental health journey?
It was so confusing. Like I had gone in kind of half expecting what to be told, and then getting like hit in the side of the head with something that you didn't know was going to come was just like, it was bizarre. It felt bizarre, and it left me with a lot more questions and answers about myself. And so a lot of my life has been about trying to answer those questions since, and that's what like my mental health journey has been like.
Yeah, so a lot of unanswered questions, probably a lot of confusion at that time. So how did you kind of manage those emotions?
Yeah, so at the time, the psychologist really ran me through a lot of tools that I can use to help manage my anxiety, whether that was tools like time blocking and trying to, I guess, like improve my productivity so I'm not procrastinating at school and so I don't feel overwhelmed by school. Also things like meditation, how I can use my love of sport as meditation, and all these kind of tools that I can use to manage how I feel rather than let it dictate how I act.
Yeah, I love that. Finding things that work for you to kind of take control of that situation. And really important to be doing those things that we love. I know sport, like you said, is a huge thing for you.
Yeah, and it was a big perspective change for me in the sense that at the time when I was in year 8, I used sport as a way to like distract myself from a lot of my mental health. And so I would go out at like 4 o'clock in the morning, go for a run, come back from the run. I'd go to school early, play sport before school. Like lunch and recess were training sessions. After school, I would go to the gym with one of my best friends. And then after that, I would sometimes even go to team training. It was just like a way for me to distract myself. And I didn't know at the time that if I learnt to do that in healthy doses, it can be seen as like meditative movement, as a way for me to like really focus and like hone in on the moment, whether that's a game that I'm playing or just a training session that I'm having by myself. It kind of changed the perspective from I'm just doing this because it makes the bad feelings go away to this is how I'm looking after myself.
Yeah.
And those kind of perspective changes really have like helped me in terms of my mental health.
Going through that big period of change, you know, receiving that diagnosis, still having a lot of unanswered questions, still feeling quite confused, trying to figure out, you know, the next best step and incorporating those things that make you feel really good. When did you kind of realize that like enough was enough? I really want this to change. I've got to figure out the next steps from here.
Yeah. So when I was initially diagnosed, it really helped me at that time But because I was so young, I still had like a lot of feelings that I didn't know how to put into words. I didn't know how to communicate that with the psychologist, or let alone understand what they were, full stop, with myself.
Yeah.
So these kind of just were thrown under the rug for the longest time. And then it came up a lot worse later in life in year 12. And I was basically like in a situationship. I was in the middle of the HSC, and this was in 2020, so the pandemic. And so it was just so much going on in my life. A lot of also like an existential crisis in terms of like, what do I want to do? What do I want to be? Which you're never really meant to know at that age.
For sure.
And things never go the way that you expect it to. And so a lot came up when I was in year 12, and I felt the need to go and see a psychologist again. And so in year 12, when all these feelings came up, I found myself in a place where I didn't know how to deal with them anymore. And because I was older, because I was able to process them a lot more, I felt it a lot more. And so I really struggled. Like, I remember I was in my car, and this was the night before a footy game, and I was just overwhelmed with anxiety. And this was like the first time I ever really had like an anxiety, like panic attack. And I remember sitting in the car at midnight just crying for hours. And then I got up out of my car, went for a walk, ended up getting home at like 4 o'clock that morning. And then I got up at like 7, went and played a game at 9. And I remember looking in all of my teammates' eyes and just feeling like they all don't know what I just went through the night that I just had. Or times when I was at school, and there was this one specific time I remember. It was a wet weather day, and so it was raining quite heavily. We weren't allowed on the oval to play sport to distract myself like I did a lot. And so I ended up leaving my group of friends and going to the library to pretend like I was studying, when I really just had music in, had my book open, had my laptop open, was doing nothing. And the end of lunch came, and so I closed my laptop, closed my book up, put it all in my bag, started walking down from the library to where my friends were. And I was walking through the rain, and I just remember like a wave of sadness hit me, and just like almost like it was uncontrollable, like tears started to come out my eyes. And so I kind of got closer to my friends, and they asked me like, "Oh, you look like you were in a sad movie. Like, are you okay?" And my answer was like, "Of course. Why would I not be?" That's these kind of moments when you look back and you feel like, oh, like that was a chance. That was like a pivotal moment where I could have talked about my mental health, and yet I chose to not to. These were moments where I was like, okay, like I have something that I need to fix. And if it's not my friends or my family that I'm going to talk to, then it has to be a professional.
I can only imagine how challenging that would be, feeling all of these emotions, only just kind of understanding what they are or figuring out how to communicate what you're experiencing, and then still feeling like you can't really be vulnerable and open about what you're going through would be super challenging. I think it's really important to kind of, I guess, call out that there are periods of time where you might feel great and feel like you've got all of those tools that you chatted about earlier. And then you might have another dip where you're like, I actually need a bit more support than these tools that I've already got or the people around me. I'm keen to kind of hear from you of your experience of reaching out for support an additional time and what that was kind of like for you.
When I was reaching out for the second time when I was in year 12, I was very lonely at the time. I felt like I needed a hug from someone, like a verbal hug to say like, you're okay. Because I wasn't talking to people about that, I couldn't get that. And so when I went and saw the psychologist for the second time, it was finally a chance where I could like be completely vulnerable and open myself up to this person. And I was in a scenario where I couldn't get hurt. It's in a scenario where like if your friends think that you're weird for speaking about mental health, like you're going to be afraid that they're going to just abandon you after you talk about it. While this person, I mean, it's their job. Like they're going to be there. And they're going to be there every week at the same time. Whenever you next book in with them, that's when when you're going to see them. And so there's a reassurance that it's not going to go bad. And so there's a lot of a calm in that. And it ended up being like an anonymous compassion that I didn't really know that I needed.
Yeah.
I've always felt like therapy is like guided journaling, in the sense that there's this person there and it's that they're just listening to you, they're just talking to you. And then once they hear your full story and they learn more about you and they kind of understand you as a person, then they start to bring in tools to help you manage it that work for you. Not just for the whole population, but work for you specifically. And it was an amazing second time around, a really healing second time around.
Talking about reaching out to your psychologist and it being a space where you felt like it was going to be safe no matter what you were sharing, did that then kind of empower you to have more conversations outside of that space?
Absolutely. I think it made it a lot more comfortable because I had done it before. And so when the time came, when I had that chance to talk to my friends about it, I remember it was my two best friends. I saw them last night. I was playing pool with them. They're still my best friends now. We were all having a conversation, doing what like teenagers do at that time, which we were 17. And we were watching like scary movies talking about girls pretty much. And the conversation came up in regards to the situationship I was in. They were like, oh, like what's been going on there? Like, why can't you do this? Why have you been having trouble with that? And then I was like, oh, because I was diagnosed with anxiety when I was in year 8. And it was pitch black, but I couldn't see. But my best friend told me, like his mouth was wide open. He had no idea. But like the person I've been closest with, that I've spent the most time with, had no idea that I had anxiety and had social anxiety and had kind of struggled with that. And so having that conversation where we ended up all opening up to each other and having ended up being a conversation until like 3 a.m. in the morning about mental health, and then went to sleep. It made it so much more comfortable to go and speak about it with other people and to talk about my own journey. And seeing the psychologist was kind of like the ignition to me being comfortable about speaking about my story, to then like the backbone being like speaking it with my friends, and then ended up coming to do it at batyr.
Yeah. I love that. I love that idea of like there being so much power in a story, but specifically your story, and taking that power, taking that ownership and being able to share it is, something really, really special. So I hope you're super proud of everything that you've, gone through and overcome, and all that you've achieved through sharing your story and taking ownership of that. I guess I'd love to kind of hear now what is life like for you now?
Yeah, so I'm very busy at the moment. I work in hospitality. I look after a bar, and so that's a lot of fun, working and like managing like a small group of people, and dealing with their ups and downs in life as well as your own. And it's a lot of hard work, but it's a lot of fun. And also playing sport a lot and having like a social life. So there's a lot's going on. But I'm realizing as I get older that working in mental health is like what I want to do.
Yeah.
And that kind of started with batyr.
Yeah, nice.
And so it's not going to be in like a clinical sense. I could think of nothing worse for me than to sit down and just like do nothing all day except for talk to people and listen. Like that would be exhausting.
Yeah.
All respect to people that do it. It's just not for me. And so I think, my life at the moment is really about taking the steps to make mental health my career.
A huge thank you again to our storyteller, Ben, for sharing his story with us today. And we hope that this chat inspires you to go out and have more conversations of your own.